Vav Amid Base, 26b, and we're in the middle of the Machlokas. The Gemara brought that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that any garment that is less than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim would not have tuma unless it is wool, unless it is linen. Anything that comes from the tree. So anything comes from wood. And Rabbi Yishmael, which we had, Abaye said is going to say the same thing, and Rava said, no, it's not going to be the same thing because the difference is whether their tuma applies for 3 tefachim or not for other garments. And the basis of Rabbi Yishmael was that he said tzemer pishtin, and only tzemer pishtim, only wool and linen. But to which Rava said, it's true that tzemer pishtim, wool and linen, will only apply to garments that are wool and linen. That 3 tefachim, 3 fingers, 3 etzbais with 3 etzbais is going to be tamei, and it's susceptible to tumah. But if you have a garment that's 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, there it'll be susceptible to tumah, even if it's other garments. So now the Gemara is asking that where does this other tumah come from? According to the Tanad Rabbi Shmuel, according to Rava's interpretation that there's a tumah, according in the Tanad Rabbi Shmuel, there's a tumah on anything that's 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, even if it's not wool or linen. Where does he learn that from? So, L'tana devei Rabbi Shmuel shleisha shleisha b'shar begadim minole. Where does he know this tumah for all garments that are 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim? Now, just a hint to know in the Gemara when it's talking about a hand breadths tefachim, or when it's talking about finger breadths, which are etzbaos. So in Hebrew, the feminine suffix for the number and the masculine suffix for the number change in the single digits. So shalosh is the suffix for feminine, and shalosha is the suffix for the masculine. And so when it says shalosha, it's talking about tefachim, which has the masculine suffix. And when it says shalosh, it's talking about etzbaos, which is the feminine suffix. So shalosh is always talking about finger breadths, and shalosha is talking about hand breadths or tefachim. So the Gemara says. So yesterday you clarified that any shiurim are halacha l'moshe mitzvah. So what's the Gemara's? So what's the kasha here? No, the number is for sure halacha l'moshe mitzvah. That there's a tumah in 3 tefachim, and there is a tumah for 3 etzbos, and that certain garments are going to have one, and certain garments are going to have the other. And the question is just where each one applies.
But he's asking how he knows it. How do
you know that this one applies here and this one applies there? It's still the number is still the same. The number is still the same. Halacha l'moshe mitzvah. The number is that it's 3 tefachim that creates a beged. But the question is where to apply that? Only to beged and pishtim, or also to other garments? That doesn't change halacha l'moshe mitzvah. Halacha l'moshe mitzvah says that when it says beged in regards to which is garment, when it says beged, garment, in regards to the susceptibility of tumah that has tzaraz, the Torah says v'habeged kiya be'neged tzaraz bebeged semer or bebeged pishtim. It says if the wool or linen garment there will be tzaraz. How big is that beged? That halacha l'moshe mitzvah tells us the beged is 3 tefachim. That's not going to change. And then we have 3 etzbos Pishtim, according to Rabbi Shmuel. The question is only, what about other garments? Does it apply to that as well? And that we're going to need a source to say that whatever applies to Tzemer Pishtim explicitly in the Torah applies also to others. So where do we know this teaching according to Rava's interpretation of Tana Rishma? So now at the top of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, Minale Nafkale Me'obeget. We learn it from, it says, Obeged Pishtim, or a garment. It should just say Beged Tzemer Pishtim. Why did it say O? And so yesterday we saw that the extra word Beged was a drash, and now we're going to say the Oi, Obeged is the drash to tell us that it applies to other garments as well. The time we learn Beged. It says in Torah Beged, Ainli Ela Beged, Shlosha B'Shar B'Gadam Minai. Maybe that's only the garment mentioned, which is wool and linen. How do we know that 3 tefachim by other garments will also be considered tamei? So therefore it says, or the garment, to tell you any garment, even not wool or linen, even if it's going to be silk or some others, and we'll see later the Brisa. And what is Abaye going to do with this teaching? It's going to come to include not another type of garment, but rather it's sticking with wool and linen. But in the wool and linen, the Oibeged is going to tell you to minimize the shear. And not only is it going to be by 3 tefachim, but even by 3 etzba'os, 3 finger breadths, will also be included in susceptibility to tumah. And where is that? The metame b'sharatzim. To tell us that by sheretz, there's a larger, there's a broader susceptibility, that even not only by tzaras, by leprosy of garments, but also by a tumah of a sheretz, where the Torah, where the extra word over there doesn't tell us susceptibility to tumah by so small that it's just a patch, 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. There too, we would have that tumah. So Rava responds, "V'Rava goli rachmana gabe negoyim v'hu adin l'shratzim." Rava says we don't need a specific teaching by shratzim. By when one of the 8 shratzim, one of the rodents, the tamei shratzim that touches your patch of cloth, that it's going to be tamei for a linen or wool garment, even at the size of 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, which is a patch. That we already know. Once the Torah tells us by negoim, by tzaras, that the size is 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, that would apply anywhere where the Torah uses the same word, beged. Abaye says, no, you can't compare the two. Ikil mifrach, because I have a question, a breaking point, which will distinguish the two. You want to tell me just as by tzaras, by leprosy of a garment, the Torah says that there's the wool or linen garment, and we defined it as 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. So too, anytime it mentions beged for tumah, and therefore even in regards to a sheretz, we're going to say that it applies to 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. No, I can distinguish the two. The Torah explicitly said a tremendous chiddush in regards to the tumah susceptibility of nega, where we saw yesterday that not only in a garment but even in the shesi and erev, in the vertical and horizontal lines in your weaving device, there, technical, the weft and the what were the words, Donna and Charles?
Warp and woof or warp and weft.
Warp and weft. There you go. In the vertical and horizontal lines, that they themselves can have a tuma sheretz alone. So since and that only applies in regards to the tuma of negoim. We don't find that there is such a form of tuma in any other thing, that it's not a complete garment yet. It's just the lines, and and tuma will apply. But the Torah says so explicitly. The Torah says
sheretz is metamim b'godim.
Sheretz can be metamim begodim. It says kalim, vessels, which is begodim. But it would need to be a certain measure. And if you want to learn the size of beged, the size of garment, you can't learn it from tzaras, because tzaras has this unique new idea that we never heard of. And therefore, and it only applies there, and therefore you can't compare one to the other. V'idach, and what does Rava respond? Well, if that's true, that nega is stricter, so then the Torah should have set these laws in regards to the sheretz. And since nega is stricter anyhow, the Torah could have just learned one from the other, or the Torah could have taught us all the teachings of the sizes in regards to the sheretz, and I would learn one from the other. So you're telling me, the Torah wrote it all by sheretz, by nega, and since nega has this new law of even in the weft and the other word, right, the vertical and horizontal line in weaving, that it applies, tuma applies there as well. Therefore, the Torah had to tell me that it applies also to sheretz. Well, the Torah could have done it better. It could have told me all the halachas by sheretz, and then I would apply it to nega, which you're telling me is stricter in any case. And since the Torah didn't do that, what the Torah must be saying is that, no, we can compare the two anyhow. And is to tell you that even other garments would also have the rule of the three fist breadths, three tefach. V'idach negay mishratzim le'asim. No, I couldn't learn it either way, because each one has its own unique halacha. The uniqueness by nega, we said that it has tuma even in the vertical and horizontal weave lines, but we have also in regards to shratzim, it has its own unique thing. Mala shratzim shekem etamacha adasha, that the size of the infecting item, meaning the size of the sheretz, only has to be a bean size, whereas in regards to the size of the stain of nega, of the tzaras on the garment, that needs to be the size of a gris, which is larger. And so even if the Torah had, which is a smaller size. And so therefore, if the Torah had said only in regards to sheretz that there's a tuma, I would not say that the tuma also applies in regards to nega, because we see that sheretz has a greater susceptibility in that even a smaller size, a sheretz has a smaller susceptibility that even a adasha, even the small size of a bean is going to make it tummy.
So the Torah is trying to knock, the Gemara is trying to knock down here every possible chal v'chomer. Is that the idea?
The Gemara is just a comparison.
You can't make a kal v'chomer. You couldn't learn it from a kal v'chomer here.
Well, not a kal v'chomer, just any comparison, because the Torah said beged by one and beged by the other, so then they must apply to the same rules, to which the Gemara says, Abaye says no. If you had told me that it should apply to sheretz, if you told me it should apply to sheretz, I would say no. Tuma applies to a sheretz at a small size, at a smaller size, meaning that the infecting sheretz doesn't have to be more than a adasha, a bean size, and yet it can infect a garment. It can make it tummy. So then the rules that say that even a small garment of linen, a 3 finger by 3 finger, is going to have susceptibility to tuma. That's not going to tell me that the same would apply in regards to tsaras on a beged, because even though the Torah says beged, garment here, and the Torah says beged, garment there, I can't compare the two because each one has something that's a chiddush, something that's unique about it, new, that doesn't apply to the other. And so if the Torah says a certain size measure for one, I still need an extra word of beged to tell me that it'll apply also to the other. That's Abaye's point. And Rava is wanting to say that, no, the beged is telling me that all garments have the same rule of tumah. So we have this brisa. It's inconclusive, and now we're going to have another statement of Rava, which ultimately Rava is going to retract his first opinion. Amar Abai. Hi Tana Dvei Rabbi Shmuel Mapik Meidach Tana Dvei Rabbi Shmuel. We have the first statement of the students of the Academy of Rabbi Shmuel, which we saw yesterday towards the top of Chav Vav Amud Beis 26b, which said, where Abaye quoted the Tana Dvei Rabbi Shmuel that said, since the Torah said beged, garment, and many times the Torah refers to beged as garments in regards to tzitzis, in regards to shatnez, in mixing wool and linen, in regards to various garments being susceptible to tumah. And in one place, the Torah tells us, in regards to the tumah of nega, of tsaras, of leprosy in a garment, there the Torah tells us tzemer opishtim. It tells us it applies to wool and linen. Therefore, all the times the Torah says tzemer, it means wool and linen. So Rava wanted to say that that's only in regards to the susceptibility of tumah of a 3 finger by 3 finger. But a 3 fist, a 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, that would apply even to other garments. And Abaye said, no, it's talking about all laws, all rules, that tumah susceptibility by nega is only for wool and linen. Now we have another brisa of Rabbi Shmuel, of the Academy of Rabbi Shmuel, which is going to contradict this previous statement of Rabbi Shmuel. Tana Rabbi Shmuel, the Tana Rabbi Shmuel. We have a brisa of Rabbi Shmuel, beged. It says in the Torah, a garment in regards to the susceptibility of tumah of sheretz, of a nega. Eli ela beged tzemer pishtim. Perhaps that's only in regards to wool and linen. Minayin l'rabis tzemer gemalim. How do we know that camel here, but tzemer arnavim, and let's say rabbit here, notza shal izim, goat here, v'shir and kalach v'esrikin, and also various types of silk garments. How do we know that those two are considered garments in regards to the susceptibility of tumah of tzaras? Therefore, we have the beged when it said in the Torah that there's susceptibility of tumah of tzaras in regards to wool and linen. The Torah could have just said beged semer upishtim, a garment of wool and linen. Since it says a garment of wool or a garment of linen, so we saw garment as extra word and is an extra word, and that tells me that not just the two mentioned, but it really the two are a non-exhaustive list. But any other garment would apply. Rava Amar, however, Rava says ki lesle lahachtana dvei Rabbi Shmuel b'shar begadim shalosh shlosha isle. The first teaching of Rabbi Shmuel, which said that tumah does not apply to other garments, only to wool and linen. That's in regards to the 3 fingers by 3 fingers. But 3 handbreadths by 3 handbreadths are going to be, every garment is going to have that susceptibility. And where it says, but we just said that in the previous daf, that Rava said that that's only according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, only according to the first opinion. But the second opinion, which was the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael, they would hold that it's strict, only wool and linen has the tumah, and not other garments. And so then this second Bryce is going to be a contradiction. So Gemara says, Hadabei Rava Mahi. Rava retracted the previous his previous statement, and he's of the opinion that the two Bryces of the students of Rabbi Yishmael, the 2 Bryces of the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael, they concur, and they're just talking about 2 different things. The first one that we saw yesterday is referring to the smaller size, the 3 fingers by 3 fingers, shalosh al shalosh. There, that only applies, that small size of a patch only applies to wool and linen. It's a usable patch for a garment that has a hole, but only in wool and linen. You're not going to use it from other garments. It doesn't have a halacha of a garment in that small size. But all would agree, both of these brises would agree that a full 3 fists would be susceptible to tumah, not only in wool and linen, but all other garments. And so he puts the 2 together and says that actually concur, and as opposed to Abaye, who says that one disagrees with the other, he says that they both concur. V'iba yasema, but if we want, we can say that this latter statement, that this second bryce of Rabbi Shmuel is talking about all other garments as well, is Rav Papa, Rav Papa, the Amra of Papa, because Rav Papa said Af kol lasuya kilayim. When he said, you know what the previous brisa is referring to when it says not only in regards to wool and linen, but also other garments. Af kol tzemer pishtim, all other garments have to be wool and linen, not only here. He's referring to one thing. He's not saying that no tumah applies to other garments. Of course, tumah would apply to other garments as well. And when the Torah said, when the Brisa said, just as over here when the Torah refers to beged, a garment, it means wool and linen. So too elsewhere, when the Torah says beged, it means wool and linen. That's narrow. It's not a universal thing. If it says beged, it only means wool and linen. No, in specific places, it'll mean wool and linen. That's what Rav Papa says. And where are those specific places? By kilayim, by in regards to a mixture of shatnez, which the Torah says you're not allowed to wear a garment that it has a mixture of wool and linen in it. That's what we're learning from here. So Gemara says, what are you talking about? Kilayim, behedik sivbe. That's one place where the Torah explicitly tells us that when it says a garment, it means wool and linen. Because it says, l'sil b'shatnez tzemer pishtim yachtav. Don't wear shatnez, a wool and linen together. So we see clearly that the Torah explicitly tells us already not to wear the 2. The Gemara says, no. I may have thought, it's only if you're actually wearing the garments together. Avar b'halah kol trei minias. But if you're just putting it on, not wearing it, you're just putting it on you, you have it on your shoulder or something, so that you can't even have wool and linen. Any 2 types. Therefore, I need the Torah to tell me only wool and linen. So Gemara says that's quite contrary to logic. I would think that if the Torah is prohibiting, it would be broader in its prohibition when you're wearing it, not when it's just sitting on your shoulder. If you're wearing it, you're actually warming your entire body with it. And yet the Torah said specifically only wool and linen, and not any other mixtures. For sure, if it's just sitting on your shoulder, it's going to be only wool and linen is going to be prohibited. Ela de Rav Papa Badusi. Rather, this statement of that is quoted in the name of Rav Papa is not accurate. Rav Papa never said it. So so when the Brisa, the first Rabbi Shmuel Brisa said that just as the Torah said beged, garment, by tsaras, it means wool and linen, so too elsewhere the Torah means wool and linen, can't mean only kilayim, because in fact over there it's specific. The Torah already told us explicitly wool and linen, so I don't need that. So must be it's coming to teach us something else. And now we turn the page to Chaf Zayin Amid Beis, and he says, Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that when the Brisa said before that since the Torah said beged, garment, and it explicitly says wool and linen, and it says garment elsewhere, and so therefore wool and linen is going to mean specifically wool and linen. Beged is going to mean specifically wool and linen, and no other garment. That refers to tzitzis, as we've mentioned for the past few days. That there is an opinion that says that only wool and linen are obligated in the mitzvah of tzitzis. Other garments are not obligated in mitzvah tzitzis, at least not midoraisa. Tzitzis behed yikseve. Well, there too, the Torah explicitly says, don't wear a garment of wool and linen, shatnes. And immediately following it says, and you should make tassels on it. So we see by juxtaposition, it's referring to a garment of wool and linen. That's what the Smichus tells us. Now, I may have thought like Rava, because Ravi asked a contradiction in the Ksiv, in the verses. Ksiv hakanaf min kanaf. We say that there's a mitzvah that when you have a garment, the white strings have to be the same as your garment. So if you have a linen garment, your tzitzis have to be a linen tzitzis. Hakanaf min kanaf. Yochsiv tzemer pishtim yachtav. And it says wool and linen may not be bound together. Haketzat. So the Gemara says, well, here's what it is. Tzemer pishtim poitrim beimamina ben shaleb aminon. Wool and linen will apply as a valid tzitzis to any type of garment. So wool, linen, cotton, silk, all of that's going to be valid as a garment, and the wool and linen are your universal type of tzitzis.
Wool and linen separate. Wool and linen. In other words,
Let me just finish, and then maybe it'll answer. Either wool or linen would apply as a valid tzitzis to any type of garment. That's a universal tzitzis. So if I had silk, I can use linen. Or if I had cotton, I could use linen. Or I had linen, I could use linen. If I have wool, I could use wool. If I had wool, I could use, if I had a wool garment, if I had a silk garment, I could use wool. If I have a cotton garment, I could use wool, as we do, right? So that's the two of them are the universal. However, if I have a cotton and I want to use a different type of tzitzis, I can only use cotton. Cotton cannot go on wool. Cotton strings cannot go on wool. Cotton strings cannot go on silk. Cotton strings cannot go on linen. Cotton strings will only work on cotton. So that's what it means. If you have the same type as the corner, then it'll work in any garment. If you have wool or linen, that's universal. It could go on any garment. Shar minim and minan poitrin. But other garments only in their own type of strings would be valid. Shalib and minan poitrin. But if you had silk strings on a cotton garment, it's not going to be valid. So I may have thought like Rava that is true. Kamash Malan, that's why we need the teaching to tell you. Beged tells me, no, only wool and linen can be, you're only obligated to put tzitzis on wool and linen. You're not even obligated in tzitzis if you have a cotton or silk garment. Amar Rav Ashi, Latana Ve'Rishmal, Mashna Le'inin Tuma the Marbi Shar Begadim. why is it that according to the Tana Rishmon, it says that all garments apply, that the Tuma applies to all garments, even cotton, even camel hair and goat's hair? Why? So why is it that by Tuma we have a special teaching to tell us that all garments are included? Because it says oy beged to tell you even camel hair and goat hair, etc. Why don't we say the same applies to tzitzis, that also all garments should be included, because it says any garment that you cover yourself with, asher techasaba, that which you cover yourself with. So he says, no, that's coming to teach us something else. Ahu la'asuyeksus suma. That's coming to tell us that even a garment for a blind person is obligated in tzitzis. Why would I think a blind person's garment is not obligated in tzitzis? Netanya, we learned, and you shall see the garment, which you shall see the strings that you put on the garment. Prat luxus laila. That excludes a night garment, which we mentioned the other day, Machlekes Beishav and Basilil, about the patur of ksus laila. We mentioned that there's a machlekes whether that means pajamas, meaning a night garment, something that you typically wear at night, or it means any garment at night. So therefore, when we put on tzitzis at night, or we put on a talis at night, which we only typically do either a chazan or Yom Kippur, right? That's the only time really we wear a talis at night. The halacha is you put on your talis, and if you want to make a bracha on the talis, you have to put it on prior to Yom Kippur, before sunset, and because Laila lavs man tzitzis, the nighttime is not a time for tzitzis. Also in the morning, we have the obligation becomes, as soon as you are able to see the difference between one string and the other, right? Then you're obligated. Mishay Yakir. That's the time that you're able to see enough in the darkness, and now you're obligated in tzitzis, so you can make a bracha. So the Torah specifically says that the mitzvah of tzitzis does not apply either to night type garments or to night time garments, but either way, ksus laila is excluded. So I may have thought, just as since you cannot see the strings at night, you're exempt at nighttime, so too a blind person's garments are going to be exempt. So we say, no, that's why we have the asher techasa, anything that's covered. So Gemara says, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe when it says, and you shall see the garment, it's referring to the exclusion of a blind person's garment. No, when it says anything you cover that covers you, it includes a blind person's garment. So then what does and you shall see it mean? It's going to exclude a nighttime garment. And what makes you think, what do you see to make you think that it should apply to include a blind person, a blind person's garment, and exclude nighttime garment? Maybe it's the other way around. Because the blind person's garment is subjective. It's his garment, he can't see, but everybody can see. It's a time of seeing. It applies universally at this time. It's visible tzitzis. The tzitzis are visible. It just happens to be he can't see it. But I'm going to exclude the nighttime because nobody can see there. Or there that applies, and you shall see it applies universally. Nobody can see it at that point. Even others cannot see it. And maybe Ashetachasa is not coming to tell you, oh, that garment which covers, meaning even for a blind person, maybe the questioner is right. That garment that covers should include any garment, including wool, linen, and silk, cotton, etc. Like Rava says. Mistabre koi betzemer pishtim mar betzemer pishtim koi betzemer pishtim mar b'shar begodim. Says no, it's not so logical. When the Torah explicitly is in the context of wool and linen, when asher tachasa is more likely to include something within the context of what's already said. In wool and linen, it's broadened the obligation to even someone that I may have thought it doesn't apply to, rather than to extend it to new types which aren't even mentioned. And that's why it's more logical, according to this Tana of Rabbi Shmuel, to say that it includes wool and linen for blind people, and rather than say it applies to a whole spectrum of garments that are not in the text itself. In any case, so we have, let's just, since we're at the conclusion here, let's just go back to what we have. We have, the Torah says in regards to wool and linen, regards to tsaras, a leprosy on garments, that it should be either wool or a linen garment. Since it says garment and garment twice, we're going to include not only a garment that applies to everybody, which would be a fist breadth, 3 fist breadths, 3 tefachim, which we say means that it can be a kerchief at least for both wealthy and unwealthy and poor people. Anybody can use this, but it'll apply even to 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, which is really just usable as a patch and therefore only usable for poor people, not for rich people. Nevertheless, it says beged and beged, and it'll be inclusive. The question is, does this apply to other wool and linen garments? Does this apply to other garments? And we have the oy. So Rava says the oy beged, the or beged, tells us that it applies also to other garments, at least in the 3 fist breadths. Abaye says, no, it applies only to wool and linen. And it's to tell you that not only by leprosy, by tsaras, but also by shrutzim, also by the tuma that applies to a sheretz, which is a rodent, so the 8 shrutzim that the Torah says tuma by, that would apply as well in the 3 finger breadths for wool and linen. We have another brisa that says no, it applies in Rabbi Shmuel, that applies equally to all other garments, and we explain that means in the 3 fist breadths. Then we have a machlokes. Do we apply this rule of beged, meaning only wool and linen, also to tzitzis or not? If it applies to tzitzis, then tzitzis is only going to be obligated on the garment, at least midoraisa, on garments that are made of wool and linen. Rava is going to say, no, it applies to all garments, midoraisa. And the only thing that we say wool and linen is that the strings of wool and linen are going to be a universal cover for any garment, whereas strings can only work for silk garments, and cotton strings can only work for cotton garments. Either way, that's the halacha is that way, and it's just a question of whether it's the oraisa or the rabbanan. There are those that are particular in only wearing wool tzitzis on account of this opinion in the Gemara, because if the only garment that's biblically obligated in tzitzis is wool, so it's better to wear that. There are those that specifically wear cotton, either because it's more comfortable, and so it's not a garment if you're not comfortable with it, or because they wear cotton to show that cotton is obligated in tzitzis. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar v'sumchus amru dava echad. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who said that beged applies to wool and linen alone, and sumchus say the same thing. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar had amran, sumchus the Tanya. Sumchus omer sichacha betavi psula mepnei shematama ben agoy. If somebody used as a schach, and if you remember, we saw that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that anything that comes from the tree, even if you've woven it into a small patch, is not gonna be susceptible to tuma, and therefore you can use it as your schach. But if you made it out of linen, which comes from a tree, from the reeds. So therefore, it's going to be susceptible to tumah, even if it's small, and therefore you may not use it for schach. So he says also, if you use tevi, this weaving, that even though the spinning, the spun threads, that even though that it's not a garment yet, but so if you have linen, flax, twine, it's going to be susceptible to tumah, because nega, as we said, applies even to a loom, even to the vertical or horizontal threads in a loom, in even to the weft, and therefore, since negoim applies to it, it's susceptible to tumah, and if it's susceptible to tumah, you can't use it as chach. Kaman ki haitana, like the brisa we learned, the Tanam we learned, shesi ve'erev metama ben negoim, that even the vertical and horizontal lines in your loom are going to be susceptible to tumah. Miyad, immediately, even before they become a garment. Never Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, hashesi mishe'yishala ve'erev miyad. Well, va'enu shopishta mishe'yislabnu. It's the second opinion. Rabbi Yehuda, he says, well, it depends. The threads themselves, the twine, the whatever the linen threads are going to be called, are going to depend. The vertical lines were thicker. The horizontal lines were thinner, as we've seen a few times that they would make a thick line, which would be just go up and down in the loom, and the shuttle would bring the thinner threads across, and that's how they would weave. So the erev is going to be immediately. The shesi is going to be once they're in the spool, in the shuttle to be thrown across, and if you have a whole clump of linen threads, that's once it's been whitened. That's when they are susceptible to tumah. But in either case, everybody agrees it's susceptible to tumah at some point when it's still only thread, even before it's been fully woven into a garment. It's just a question at which point. So what we see is that linen is susceptible to tumah at an early stage before it's a garment, and therefore it may not be used as schach. And that's what this brisa of sumchus that says it cannot be used as schach as soon as it's spun is going to be either like Rabbi Meir or like Rabbi Yehuda, but either way, what that concurs with the teaching of Rabbi Shimon Elazar from Chavav Amud Aleph 26a, which says that any linen parts, garments, are going to be susceptible to tumah and therefore cannot be used as schach. So tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we'll go back to the Shabbos halachas of what can be used for your Shabbos candles, and with this we conclude this section of Tumah and Tara. And we're going to move into Shachris.